Hello one and all, and welcome along to the EuroFantasyLeague Podcast. This is your monthly update on the Premier League, La Liga and Serie A. And we're with you once a month, as I say, and by we, I'm talking about myself, Jamie McLean, and I'm joined by Mr. Air Ambulance himself. It's Dave Fennick. Hello there, Dave.
How are you doing, Jamie?
Oh, I'm not bad, mate, not bad. How are you?
All right, canny.
Cool, well, let's get on with the show then. Yes, and welcome along, as I say, to the EuroFantasyLeague Podcast. And I called Dave Fennick Mr. Air Ambulance there because you got mistaken for an air ambulance man when you turned up, didn't you?
I came up to your studio, the bloke opposite came out and said, "Are you from the air ambulance?" I says, "No, mate, I'm just driving a car." And I thought he meant was driving like an air ambulance. I said, "No," and he looked at us, and I thought, "You've had a good Sunday night, mate." and anyway, he says, "So you're not from the air ambulance?" I says, "No, this is my car, mate." And he's like looking at us a bit bemused. He says, "No, I mean, you know, when they deliver the leaflets, I've got some old clothes I've put in a bag for them. I thought you were collecting them." And I sort of quickly hurried away, actually, you know, 'cause I think he had a good Sunday night.
Yeah, no, I think he must have done. Sorry, I've just got an alarm going off here. Right, we'll turn that off.
What's going on?
Yeah, that would be pretty sweet entrance into my street, that, if you were flying an air ambulance down and landed on my front lawn. Yeah, I'd be the talk of the village for a little while.
Unfortunately, I haven't got a pilot's license.
No, well, some may say that's for the best, Dave.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So we're going to get cracking on with the Premier League and La Liga in just a little bit, Dave. But first off, we're being joined on the show, very special guest here. It's Richard Hall. He's the Chief Correspondent for Football Italia, creator of the Gentleman Ultra, and part of the Guardian Sports Network as well. So really excited to have you on here. Hello there, Rich. How are you doing?
I'm not bad, guys. How are you, okay?
Yeah, marvellous. Both good. Very excited to have you on the show, actually. It's really good of you to take the time. I've just got a few questions for you regarding Serie A, like the season so far and things like that. So what have you thought so far of the first few weeks of the season? It's been as good as ever, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it has. I think the most interesting part of this season was the obvious build-up of obviously Cristiano Ronaldo arriving.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to ignore it. The amount of press he was given, and rightly so. It was interesting because for Juventus in particular, it outlined their ambitions, especially in the Champions League. It also signalled the fact of, can Serie A eventually bring back players of his magnitude, even despite his age, back in. So it was seen as a sign then. But it was also really interesting as well because it was a very strange backdrop of, while all this publicity was going on about Serie A and also the Higuain signing and all the various different elements there into spending, etc.
Yeah.
You saw teams like Avellino, Cesena, Bari, all, disappearing. So it really has been a season of the haves and the have-nots. And as much as it looks like Serie A is back, and to an extent it's getting there, there's still a lot of problems in Italian football in general, as we've seen. But it's been an exciting start, and I think it's only just... I don't think we're getting the true story told just yet.
Yeah, Rich, I was just on about Ronaldo. You've touched on him there. And I was looking at his wages, staggering wages. He's on 3 times as much as any other player in Serie A. 50 million per year, 894,000 a week.
Yeah, exactly. And you're spot on. And there was some controversy about this as well. I mean, as we all know, Juventus have for many a mood been run by the Agnellis, and there's another company that oversees Juventus as well that's also owned by the Agnellis. And what that other company obviously can do is allows them to transfer money from one company to the other. And when he came in on these huge deals, and don't forget as well, he's obviously got his image rights back now, which you didn't see at Madrid at all of them. What you've now got a situation of is they have managed to take potentially money out of Fiat to pay this. Now, that caused huge problems in Turin with the workforce, because at the time of the last 3 years, Fiat have had many cutbacks, just as a lot of businesses have. They're not seeing pay rises, etc. And then all of a sudden, their hard work is being seen to fund this, and there was potentially going to be some strikes. We've seen this before in Italy, and especially with Fiat, but they came to nothing really in the end. But Juventus have really thought that this is crucial to pay this money, and they believe that they will certainly get the money back from obviously things like shirt sales. I mean, the guy is a brand on his own. You look at the Instagram followers, for instance, he has. I think, it can be more than any of this, probably more than all the Serie A clubs put together almost. It's ridiculous. So they will be able to get this money back, they believe, but a lot of it depends on winning that Champions League.
Yep, and I see Roma director Francesco Totti is already, after 3 games, claiming Juve are the champions already and they have no competition.
Yeah, I think there is a consistent feeling that Juventus are the serial Serie A and Coppa Italia winners. The last 4 seasons, especially, have seen them really improve into this machine as it is. I mean, the way they bounced back from 2006 and Calciopoli to where they are now, through the hard work of people like Antonio Conte on the way, the Agnelli family, people like Marotta, they've now got to a stage where, they almost see themselves as, how can I put this? There's been many a time in the start of the last couple of seasons where they've been playing almost in second gear. Allegri takes time to figure things out. They've lost players like Tevez, like Pirlo, like Buffon, like Pogba, all these different variables. Higuain's now gone. But they've already, all the time, they replaced them. And all of these, we can look at Pogba came in, for instance, Dybala, now Ronaldo. And there's always that little bit of a time at the beginning of the season where it looks like Juventus are just playing second gear, not really clicking. But, you give them a few months and they're off. And I think what's happened here is that even though with Cristiano Ronaldo not scoring, it's probably sent a message to the rest of the league that he's not been bought to win Serie A. They can do that on their own. This guy's been bought for the Champions League solely for that, really. And so a lot of the other teams, especially when they've got to integrate players, you look at Inter and the amount of players they bought. You look at the fact that Roma have lost some key players and got a younger squad this season. Napoli have lost their coach. We'll have to adapt to Ancelotti. The main challenges are also in that adaptation stage at the moment. And Juventus just look as though, even without Ronaldo, as I mentioned, they're off to a decent start.
They definitely are. And I mean, going back to what you were just saying there about Juventus bringing Ronaldo in solely for the Champions League, is that a trophy that they're going to be they're never going to say no to winning it, obviously, but is that going to be a trophy that they're actively going to go out and target immediately? Or do you think this is the first stage of building to become like perennial challenges for it?
No, in some respects, this has been an interesting season for that. Juventus have been wanting the Champions League for the last 3 years. Their marketing campaign, the fans, they have all been in there. They've not openly admitted it, but they've been targeting that, and it's become something they demand. And now it's an obsession, and that obsession has reached its pinnacle. Now, even Juventus saying it's our time. This is when we do it. They've reached 2 finals in the last 4 years, and fell short. What's the best way to win the Champions League? To buy the Champions League top scorer, and also you can see the way in the transfer with Higuain, Caldara, and Bonucci that was taking place between Milan and Juve. On paper, that deal looks mad. It looks crazy. Mm-hmm. You've got Leonardo Bonucci in his 30s, didn't get on with Allegri, didn't get on with some of the team, goes to Milan for an exceptional fee. Next season comes back, and when you take him back in, you also send on loan, plus a huge fee, Gonzalo Higuain, and Mattia Caldara is one of the best young centre-back prospects in Italy.
Yeah.
And you think, why would you do that? And the reason is because Allegri knows if Bonucci comes back, he has to eat some humble pie, but he is the mainstay. Him and Kylian are going to play with the national team, and they're going to play for Juventus. And again, it gives them that real chance to do it this year.
Looking away from Juventus a little bit, there's been a couple of the bigger teams that have had a bit of a slower start as well. The likes of Lazio, Milan, Sampdoria, not quite hitting the ground running. Has that just been the way the fixtures have come in the early season, or do you think they're facing a real challenge to get back up to the likes of Juventus and perhaps Napoli's level?
Yeah, I think the difficulty is, I mean, they always are going to have a long way to go to match Juventus. But, the likes of, if we use Inter, Inter's probably the best example in the sense of they're the team that looks to have the best project outside of Juventus to really challenge. Napoli haven't really changed too much of their squad. They've not brought in Fabian Ruiz, and they brought in Alex Meret from Udinese, good goalkeeper. David Ospina's really only covering till Meret's fit. So they've not brought in a huge amount, but they're going under a different transition with Ancelotti. With the Maurizio Sarri, as Chelsea fans will find out, he'll coach them to within an inch of their life. And to go from such a rigorous, regimented process to bring in Ancelotti, who's a bit more measured, could take time, but it could work could work really well. Ancelotti is supposed to be bringing a winning mentality to Napoli to take them up to the next level. So, we'll have to wait and see what Napoli will bring. Inter have got an array of talent come in. The Lautaro Martinez looks like an excellent signing. Niangaland has come in as well. They sorted out the old fullback positions. The Vrai's come in as well. And on the wide, on the flanks, people like Politano. They've bought really, really well. But they started slowly. Spalletti's going to take some time. And you've got all these little projects, as you quite rightly said, they're sort of going on. I don't think particularly the fixture list as such, because, Inter have had it fairly easy. But again, Milan are in another transition, now owned by the Elliott Management Fund after Lee Yun-hong's regime collapse, should we say. They've actually come out in a bizarrely better position. But again, there's questions over Gattuso and his style of coaching. So there's so many little projects going on. Roma have lost players, we said, young team. I think Juve will be pushed if they go deep into the Champions League, and it does become a bit obsessive with them. I think this table, as we see it now, with Milan lying where they are. You've got Milan and Fiorentina, Genoa, and Sampdoria have also played a game less after the games were postponed after the terrible bridge accident in Genoa. So there's a particular reason for that. But on the flip side, I think this table will certainly level itself out as we in the next couple of weeks and months.
I was just about to say, Rich, on the flip side of the usual suspects being up there, my favourite team in Serie A, Spal, they've got off to a good start, although the last game they got beat off Torino 1-0, but they've scored some great goals early season, and also Sassuolo are up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always lovely to see, isn't it?
Spal are probably it's great to see them there. They're a club with a really proud history. I think 1987, they formed. They've had a really good. They were a team that after the Second World War and through to the 60s were synonymous with being, in that top bracket in Serie A in some respects. And it's only in recent years they've come back. It's good, like you say, they scored some fantastic goals. It's an interesting squad. It tends to be made up of players where we may have heard of in the past. People like Alberto Poloski. The strike force interests me this year because you've got Poloski who can score goals. He's not going to go and get you 20 goals, but he's capable, very capable indeed. And interestingly, Andrea Patagna from Atalanta is one of a really exciting young player, which I'm surprised went out on loan as well from Torino. Sorry, from Atalanta. Talking of Torino, Savic in goal. It'd be interesting to see how much game time he gets over Gomez this season, simply because I think he's another exciting talent. Obviously, he's a brother of Milinkovic Savic, the man at Lazio that everyone's touting.
I was about to ask if he was, yeah.
Yeah, so if he's got any sort of talent like that. So, they've got players who can score goals. Even on the bench, you've got people like Sergio Flacardi who can make some appearances. They've got a nice little mix. And you look at other players like Valdefiori, the ex-Empoli player, and Jasmin Kurtic, who's another good acquisition. So for me, I think with Spal, I really think they could do okay this season. They won't be. I don't think they'll be looking over their shoulders as much as they were last. I think they only just escaped it last season. I think
they did. They had some great results towards the back end of the season where they were winning a lot of games, sort of 1-0. They weren't conceding, but they weren't scoring very many, should I say. But yeah, they they just survived, really, you know. But it was very tight at the bottom in the later stages of Serie A.
It was.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think, you'd hope not for them, but I think they'll be a lot higher up the table, because there's a lot of teams a lot worse than that down there as well. So, that'll be an exciting one to see how they do. Sassuolo are always one that interests me, because you look at their players and it's bizarre. Sometimes you feel like they've sold up most of the good components. Then you look at them again a couple of months later and you just are always amazed by, you look at, I really like the idea. Any team that goes out and gets Kevin Prince Boateng and plays him as a false nine, you've got to give them some credit. It's brilliantly dangerous. But again, you look and they've made some good acquisitions. Manuel Locatelli from Milan, I couldn't believe he had gone on loan. And you've got still people like Alessandro Macri, of course, the veteran forward at front who can score some goals.
Yeah.
Babacar, again, he's another one of these players who he may only get you a handful of goals, but you'll certainly remember them. And Alfred Duncan, I think, is one of the most underrated players. And that's not without going to talk about Domenico Berardi, who, every single season he's linked with the likes of not just the Chelsea's this world, but the Barcelona's. He's an amazing talent, and I'm always surprised that he hasn't been picked off. I think the only worry for me with Sassuolo this season is just the fact of that they do go on. They're a bit too sporadic, and I don't know. Whilst you've got players like Babacar and Kevin Prince in the squad, it's whether they can. They, like Spal was talking about then, the players they have are players who can more beat that same level of consistency, where you've got too many players for Sassuolo who are either, if it all gels, it's amazing, but they can also go missing at times as well.
Yeah, that's great, Rich. Now, I know our time together on the show is slowly starting to wind down. I've got a quick question for you before we finish off. Are there any players who you've seen signs that will perhaps be breaking out this season, becoming from maybe a name that you'd recognise, but into a real household, well-known name? Are there anyone that on the horizon that you might expect to see having a real breakout?
Yeah, I think there's a few. I'll try and keep it short with them, but there's I think one of the most interesting teams to watch, who's probably got the most players like that, who may come to the fore. Fiorentina, they've got a really interesting young squad this season. We've all heard of Federico Chiesa, and I think his season will be huge. But more along the lines of, the goalkeeper, Alban Lafont, brought him from Toulouse. He's really highly rated. He's going to get a full season of it this season. And I think he could be absolutely excellent. I think that, when you look through that Fiorentina squad, there's some magnificent players. Marco Biaccia, who's on loan from Juventus, Croatian winger. I think he could be excellent. I'm interested also to see how Gerson does. He's on loan from Roma because he's been in and out. I think he's due a big season. One of the players I think could be standout, who we all know about anyway, and also Fiorentina, is Giovanni Simeone.
Yeah.
I know he's a bit more of a household name, but I expect him to have a huge season. But on the Argentinian front, just moving across to Milan, at Inter, one of the players who I saw in pre-season and I've just got really high hopes for is Lautaro Martinez from Racing Club. It's a really interesting link here because when Mauro Icardi first came over, he was tutored by Diego Milito when Diego was at the back end of his career, and a lot of what Icardi puts down to his brilliant goal-scoring acumen is the coaching he had from Diego. When Milito then went back to Racing Club, he had to take another young striker under his wing, and that was Lautaro Martinez. So it's come full circle now, and Lautaro Martinez has always said that his hero is Mauro Icardi. And when Lautaro Martinez landed in Milan at Malpensa, who was there to pick him up but Mauro Icardi? And they struck it off the field as almost best friends. So I think there's a potential to be a real chemistry between those two there. Lautaro plays a little bit deeper, more as a number 10 almost, but he's got such talent. And so he's probably the one, for me, that I'm really looking forward to watching. And just one more who really impressed me in his very brief appearances so far, especially against Torino, is Roma's Jordan Cliver, obviously son of Patrick.
Yeah.
He looks something else. So I mean, I could go on and on and on, but that's one good thing about Serie A at the moment. There's a lot of young players who are coming through, and the league's sort of almost having that acceptance that that's the sort of model it's having now, where a lot of young players will come through, and ultimately they probably will be picked off. But you look at the way, Roma have done that brilliantly, like Mohamed Salah, Alisson, going for big fees, and they just continue to regenerate. So it seems to be a bit of the model at the moment.
That's fantastic. I mean, I'm just looking.
Sounds like Fiorentina. Sorry, Jamie. Sounds like Fiorentina's sort of a work in progress, and they'll be exciting to watch this season.
Oh, massively. I really do think they'll be. I mean, they've started well. They have come out flying at the moment, but I do think with that squad, they've just got the potential to be. Even look, if you're asking me to pay to watch someone this season, they would probably be quite high up the list because they will shift goals. But even people like Marco Bonassi, who didn't really make it at Torino, he's a cracking player. You look at Cristiano Brighi, who was at Inter, never got picked in the squad because of Inter wanting to buy more established players. He goes to Chievo. Next thing, he's been picked by the national team. Jordan Vertu, another good player. And you could just go down the list of them, and even you look at the reserve goalkeepers, even down to some of the sort of more tricky midfielders. I'm looking at like Brian Dabo, for instance. I think he could be a really standout player. So I think they'll really grow into the season. It's just whether they've got the experience to go to keep it up all the way through. But even so, they'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, they definitely will. I think, am I right in saying Fiorentina's got the youngest average age squad in the top 5 leagues in Europe or something like that?
Yes, I think it is. It certainly is. In Italy it is. And it's interesting as well because their model has had to change. They can't compete with the likes of Roma, etc., or Inter, or even Milan now. And, the Delle Valle family's never been able to pump as much money as the fans have wanted. So it will be interesting to see them. And the good thing from, the early signs as well is that they are playing really good football, and that they can score goals. And they've proved that already this season. So, yeah, could be an outside sit for the Europa League. I wouldn't think they could go as far, into the Champions League, but, who knows?
Yeah, well, who knows exactly. Rich, that has been absolutely fantastic. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for taking the time to come on the Euro Fantasy League podcast, and hopefully we'll get to speak to you again at some point as the season goes on, whenever you're available.
I'd love to. Anytime, guys. Really appreciate you having me on. Anytime.
Thanks a lot, Rich.
Cheers, guys.
So welcome back to the Euro Fantasy League podcast. Great to have Rich on the show there. He's a really good guest. Really enjoyed that. So before we get on to La Liga and Serie A, Dave has now joined me live in the studio. So good boy, Dave. And what have you got for us? You want to round up Serie A?
Yeah, I mean, just the scores from this past weekend. Bologna scored their first goals of the season, beating Roma 2-0.
First goals of the season.
Yeah, hadn't scored before then.
Mad.
Sassuolo beat Empoli 3-1. Parma beat Cagliari 2-0. Fiorentina, I mean, they've got an abundance of striking options, and they beat our friend Spal 3-0. Milankovic got one of the goals. Inter won at Sampdoria 1-0. Napoli won at Torino 3-1. Lazio beat Genoa 4-1. Chievo lost at home 2-0 to Udinese. Milan and Atalanta, bit of a surprise this one, 2-2 draw.
Yeah,
Atalanta
deserved that as well.
Yep, and Juventus won 2-0 at Frosinone. Is that how you pronounce that?
Frosinone. I'm not 100% sure, Dave.
We should have maybe got our guest to get the pronunciation for that. 2 late goals, mind, for Juve, one of them from Ronaldo. So, yeah, the table, Juve top with a perfect record, 15 points. Napoli 12, Fiorentina 10, Sassuolo 10. And at the bottom, Chievo on -1 because they got points deducted for false accounting.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a financial thing, wasn't it?
Whereas Parma, they got deducted points originally as well, but they got off with that. So,
they're doing all right. Parma sitting right in the middle of the table.
Frosinone, they've got 1 point, and Bologna 4 points.
4 points. I think it's Frosinone.
Frosinone, yeah. I saw it just went and got rid of that. 'Cause I need,
just trying to garble that one out.
I need to get the So that's really Serie A covered.
I think that's unlucky for Chievo, though, really. I say unlucky, it's not, the financial thing. But they're still without a win. Their man Frosinone is still without a win. So they haven't quite broken even yet after the first 5 games. Got a feeling that's going to be a bit of a struggle this season, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So, so there's Serie A rounded up. So, Dave, where are you wanting to go next? Are you wanting to cover La Liga?
La Liga, yeah.
Absolutely.
Just before we leave Serie A, well, we have left it, but I'm going to go back. There's a full league programme this week.
Right,
and
yes,
then
of course.
On next Saturday, there's games as well. So, there's I think the game of the weekend, next weekend, is Juve v Napoli.
Yeah, I know, but Tuesday night's game this week, Inter Milan against Fiorentina. That's always going to be a bit of a juicy one,
decent.
That. So I'll be watching that one, definitely.
Anyway, moving on to La Liga.
Okay.
Surprise, yesterday Barcelona held to a 2-2 draw with Girona.
Yeah.
They were one man down, Barcelona, after sending off after 35 minutes, and Messi scored for them. But Girona, we seem to mention this fella, Christian Stuani, with both goals for Girona.
I'm telling you, he's amazing.
He's done really well. And it was a goal midway through the second half from Piqué that saved Barcelona's blushes there. But full programme at the weekend. Real Sociedad won 1-0 away at Huesca. Alaves had a great win at Rio Vallecano 5-1.
5-1.
Eibar beat Leganés 1-0. Celta Vigo and Valladolid.
Real Valladolid.
Yes.
Yeah.
3-3 draw.
Thrilling game, that one.
Getafe 0. Atletico Madrid 2. Real Madrid 1. Espanyol 0. Seville went to Levante and won 6-2.
6-2, yeah.
Yep. 0-0 draw for Villarreal and Valencia. Real Betis and Atletico Bilbao shared the spoils with a 2-2 draw. So Barcelona and Real top, both on 13 points. Barcelona got the better goal difference. Then Alaves up there.
Yeah.
10 points. And Celta Vigo on 8. At the bottom, Les Ganas 1. Rio Vallecano 3. And Real Valladolid, or whatever you call it,
we'll
3
go with
points.
That. 3
so
points.
Again, a full fixture this week in La Liga, and then this Saturday, Madrid derby, Real v Atletico, and Barcelona v Atletico Bilbao, the standout fixtures.
Yeah, I can see Athletic Bilbao actually putting up a fight there. They're quite good. But what you were saying about Girona doing well there, they're actually 6th in the table. Yeah. They're not having a bad start at all. And it's nice to see Huesca outside of the relegation zone. They had a bright start. They won and drew the first 2 games, but then they've gone on to lose 3 in a row. So, yeah, that's La Liga, very short and sweet, because I think our chat went a little bit over and we're running out of time a little bit here. So La Liga, I had a couple of little points that I quickly wanted to discuss about La Liga while we were on it.
All right.
PSV Eindhoven over in Holland, Herving Lozano getting interest from Barcelona. And of course, he was part of the PSV squad that took on Barcelona in the Champions League. So, that would be a bit of a dream move for him. Just wanted to say, from what little I've seen of him, he's pretty good. And I think Barcelona would do well to snap him up if they can. And also, Real Madrid, their renovation of the Santiago Bernabeu. Have you seen the pictures of this?
No, I haven't.
€400 million redevelopment. And it's not going to increase the capacity. It's just basically a cosmetic thing, updating the design.
That's a lot of tidying up.
Giving it a new lease of life, as it said in the article. Removable roof, metallic silver skin that'll enable it to truly shine in the scorching sun, it said. Private boxes, some of the adjustments going in at the Bernabeu, so I'm very much looking forward to keep an eye on that.
For a big season ticket price hike there.
Yeah, quite possibly. Quite possibly. I love making jokes about season ticket prices. When Neymar left Barcelona and went to PSG, I remember North Ferriby United sent out a tweet. I might have mentioned this on the show before, saying that they've signed Neymar, and in unrelated news, season ticket prices now cost £2.6 million. So, that was good. So that's La Liga just about covered, I think. So should we quickly skirt over to the Premier League while we've still got a chance to do so?
Yeah, Premier League, not too many surprises at the weekend. Probably the biggest one was Wolves getting a draw at Manchester United.
Yeah,
So
great result for Wolves.
Great result for Wolves.
Do you think they've been the best newly promoted team? There was some chat about them being the best looking new boys in Premier League history. What are you thinking of that?
I think Wolves will be all right. I mean, they're in mid-table there with 9 points and doing all right, and they've got their financial backing behind them, haven't they?
Yeah.
So I think they'll be all right now.
And the contacts, importantly, as well.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know whether I mentioned on the show a while back that I think the two teams to be relegated will be Cardiff, Huddersfield, and then I think one other. So I think Cardiff and Huddersfield are nailed on for relegation.
I think you did say that on the last episode,
One other will follow them. And Brighton 1, Tottenham 2, Harry Kane back amongst the goals, albeit a penalty. Burnley stuffed Bournemouth 4-0, and Burnley sort of a bit of a Europa League hangover. They've been playing football since I was
about to say I worry a little bit for them.
Back end of July or middle of July, but Burnley got a good result. Man City went to Cardiff, won 5-0. Crystal Palace, Newcastle, ball draw 0-0.
Yeah.
Fulham 1, Watford 1. Mitrovic scored again. I think, is he top scorer in the Premiership now? I think he is.
I can double check that quickly while you're going through.
Leicester beat Huddersfield 3-1. Liverpool beat Southampton 3-0, although a bit of a worry for Liverpool because Virgil van Dijk was injured. So
at his old ground as well.
Yeah. No, it was at Liverpool.
Oh, it was at Liverpool. Sorry, against his old team.
Yeah, against his old team. And Liverpool, I think they've got Chelsea and Man City the next two games.
Yes,
so
they have.
It's going to be
in amongst the European
fixtures. They don't want Van
fixtures.
Dijk being out for too long.
No.
Man United drew with Wolves, as I mentioned, 1-1. Chelsea, West Ham, 0-0 yesterday. And Everton got beat off Arsenal 2-0 yesterday.
And I just want to say about the Everton, I've double-checked, by the way, Mitrovic is joint top with Eden Hazard.
Right, okay.
So with 5 goals each, but Hazard has got 2 assists as well, so Hazard just sits atop that table. Yes, I watched the Everton-Arsenal game. I have to say, I thought Richarlison covered just about every inch of the pitch. I thought he was excellent. From the bits I did get to see.
At the top of the league, Jamie, can you see Liverpool seriously challenging Manchester City?
I hope so. I'm enjoying them. I know a lot of people were saying, that it was a 23-point gap or whatever it was between them, and that's a big gap to overhaul. But it wasn't really that big a gap to overhaul because the start of the season on 0. I get what the point is, the gulf in quality. But I think Liverpool being absolutely fantastic.
Sitting top of the minute, aren't they?
They are 100% so far. You've got to say that's not going to. The 100% isn't going to last all season.
This Van Dijk injury, though, we'll have to say how it pans out because if he's out for a length of time, they've always had the attacking threat, but they've tightened the defence up no end.
I think Van Dijk is a rock solid presence at the back for them. They've only conceded 2 goals so far out of the first 6 games, and I think a lot of that is down to Virgil van Dijk. Not purely, but his presence helps those around him. I think he's possibly the best defender in the Premier League at the minute. Do I see them challenging City right the way through to the end of the season? I would hope so. We've seen them do it before. Challenge for the title till right near the end. That famous Gerrard slip, of course, against Palace. Was that Chelsea that won the title that year, I think? And I would like to see it because I think they've been really, really good. I think there was a lot of worries back in the new year when Philippe Coutinho left for Barcelona. I think they've not even bothered looking back since he left, really. I think they've done really well.
And Salah, I think, has got 3 in 6 games, which isn't a bad return. There's been a few people.
He's been a little bit more subdued than he was last season, but 3 and 6 is still good. Yeah. I think Liverpool, they've got the front few spot on.
So that's Premiership covered, La Liga covered, Serie A covered.
Yeah. Good
guest on. I think we've gone way over our time for this podcast.
I think we're approaching it. We're not too bad, but I think we're a little bit over now. So we'll maybe call it a day for this one, and then next month we'll see what it brings. I've got to admit, not even prepared enough to have next month's arranged yet. So we'll see what happens. But thank you very much for listening to the Euro Fantasy League podcast, and we will be back with you in October at some stage. We need to book our dates. But we've really enjoyed it, and I've also got to say happy birthday to this podcast as well. 25th of September 2017 was the first episode.
Could have at least bought us a cake, mate.
I know. So could you. Oh. No, it just dawned on me earlier on. We're on the first birthday now, so that's brilliant. This has been the 25th episode, so another milestone that we've hit there with that. And thoroughly enjoying it, and we'll see what next month brings. Remember to get in touch, EuroFantasyPod on Twitter. You can email us, eurofantasypod@gmail.com, and if you have enjoyed the show, just remember to give it a subscribe, obviously, and a 5-star rating and review on your chosen podcast device. That would be absolutely incredible. We're always asking for people to do it, and people have done it, and if people can continue to do it, that would be wonderful. So until next month, thank you once again. Happy birthday to the show. Thank you for joining me for the last few minutes of the episode, Dave. Been much appreciated, and we'll see you again in October.